and a brief description about those different values and that attribute. So for example, we already discussed about copy type. It shows that it can take Metro, Global and GMCV as the three possible options for this copy type. And we also discussed about the state. So the state, two possible options are present and absent. Present means you want to create and absent means you want to delete. And again, like we discussed about master and aux, so you need to specify the master volume here, and you need to specify the aux volume here in this as part of this attribute.
Hello everyone, my name is Shilpi Jain. I'll be taking you through these slides and discussing about volume group and safeguarded copy automation, which can be achieved via Ansible modules. So IBM Spectrum Virtualize provides a feature called volume group, and a volume group is a set of related volumes, as the name suggests. So these related volumes can be managed and configured collectively. So the operation that you want to perform on some set of volumes, so that can be performed on the volume group, and we can make all those related volumes part of this volume group. So the Ansible module that we have developed to manage a volume group in Spectrum Virtualize is IBM SVC Manage Volume Group. Through this module, a user can create, modify, and delete a volume group. Ownership group can also be associated with this volume group. We can also assign safeguarded policy to a volume group, and a user can also remove a safeguarded policy from this volume group. So this is the slide where we'll be demonstrating how to use volume group and safeguarded policy with the volume group module. There are two parts of the playbook. The first task will demonstrate how to create a volume group and how to associate a safeguarded policy with the volume group. The second task shows how to create a volume and include that volume to the volume group. So here, as you see, IBM SVC Manage Volume Group, this is the name of the module that we discussed in the earlier slide. The details of all the parameters of a particular module can be found in the documentation at Reddit Automation Hub. So this is the name of the volume group that we have chosen, VG0. The state is present, that means we want to create or update an existing volume group. Here we are creating a volume group. Safeguard policy name, so SG policy 0 we have chosen here. So the first thing is that the prerequisite for using safeguard policy in a volume group module is that safeguard policy must pre-exist or must be pre-created before attaching it with the volume group. The second parameter is policy start time, and the format here is YYMMDDHHMM. That means that this policy start time will supersede the backup time parameter which has been configured while creating the safeguarded policy, SG policy 0. The second part of the task is IBM SVC Manage Volume. So this will create a volume. I have chosen the name volume 0 here. State is present, that means we are creating a new volume here. The size, unit, pool, all these parameters are there. And the next parameter is volume group. So here, if you see that we have given the name VG0. VG0 is the name of the volume group that we have created earlier, as I have shown you in the side task. So by this, what happens is the volume 0, the name that we have chosen, you can choose any name, and it will be associated with the volume group VG0. So what happens whenever user want to take a backup of a volume group? So the policy start time, this is the time when the safeguard policy will be executed.
Hello everyone, my name is Rohit and I will be explaining the administration of cross-cluster volume migration using the Ansible modules. In the slide outlined are three capabilities that the Manage Migration module supports. These are initiate, switch, and cleanup. The state initiate creates a volume on the target cluster with the same size that of the source volume, if the target volume is not already present. If the target volume is already present with the same size that of the source volume, Then the module figures this out and proceeds. And in case the target volume that is specified in the playbook is already present but has a different size than that of the source volume, the module will detect this and throw an error specifying the same. We have such checks throughout the module for a smooth experience. One of the parameters, replicate hosts, which is an optional parameter, lets the user replicate hosts mapped to the source volume to the target volume, which means the user can optionally choose to replicate the hosts. If the user does not use the replicate hosts parameter, for example, if the user wants to add a host or hosts after the initiate step, then the user can make use of the host and volume map module from the Ansible collection for Spectrum Virtualize. Initiate would also create a migration relationship and start that migration relationship. This essentially starts the replication. Now we have the state switch. So once the target volume is consistent synchronized with source, the user using the module can proceed to switch step to switch the direction of the migration relationship. This allows write access to the target volume. And once the switch is completed, the next step is to clean up. And in this step, which is the third and the last step, this is to delete the source volume after the switch is completed. The module lets the user do this using the cleanup option, or we can say state, that the module provides. We will see how and when to trigger these states using the Ansible playbook in the upcoming slides. In this slide, we have a playbook which triggers the manage migration module to initiate the migration. Also, we have a diagram to explain this transition. In the diagram, we have two clusters in partnership, and we have an existing source volume which we want to migrate. We also have a host which is mapped to the existing volume. The playbook triggers the module to start the initiate step, and a target volume is created as a result, and the hosts are replicated as we have the parameter replicate hosts set to true. For example, in the diagram, we have the existing volume, and say we have three hosts X, Y, and Z that are mapped to the existing volume. These three hosts will get created on the target system and will be mapped to the target volume. Also, there are certain parameters that are noticeable in this playbook. For example, relationship name, where we specify the name of the relationship, the migration relationship. And as we can see that we have the parameter replicate hosts set to true. And then we have the parameter remote pool, which we specify so that we are able to choose the pool on which we want to create the target volume. And we have the target volume parameter as well. In this particular slide, we have the target volume named target vol. Now, in a situation where the host is already present on the target cluster, the module detects it and maps the host to the target volume and continues to create the migration relationship and eventually start it. It is important to note that after the hosts are replicated, the user will need to discover the new paths created and run the appropriate commands or playbooks for that. The commands may vary from system to system. The user can make use of the core Ansible modules to run these commands to discover the paths,